What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Classic dropping a car vlog. Hope you guys and gals are having a wonderful day. Nobody tells you today, remember that God loves you, Christ loves you, and I love you as well. I hope and pray that you guys have a wonderful day. This is the Take It Home podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this channel where I talk about wrestling and I'll put up my matches as Classic Alpha. Excuse the beard and the blurriness of my camera as it's losing focus. I'll talk about wrestling topics and I'll put up my matches as Classic Alpha, professional wrestler of 13 years. It'll be 14, Lord willing, next month. Make sure you also subscribe to C3 Ultimate Wrestling. That is me and my wife's professional wrestling company. 7 years in the game, truly grateful. We're getting ready for our show next week, February 21st, Dyer, Indiana, Harrah's private venue. Big business. Get your tickets now on Eventbrite. They are still $5 off. That'll be regular prices at the show, so that means $5 more at the door at bars. Also, February 21st, evening show, I will be doing Backbreaker Wrestling Presents Double Down. So if you didn't get enough of Classic Alpha in the afternoon, follow me to Griffith, Indiana in the evening. What's going on, Raphael? God bless, God bless. Excuse me. Creative control. Creative control is one of these words that have been said for the past few years. I think people have run it to the ground. I think a lot of fans, don't know this to them. Some don't know exactly what it is. Some just think that everybody has it. As soon as a wrestler beats a wrestler that they wanted to win or your favorite wrestler, they had creative control. The situation with Mercedes Moné. Oh, she got all these belts because creative control. She has this, it's creative control. Oh, it's her fault. Creative control. Like, to the point that people are asking wrestlers, which you shouldn't do, about creative control and stuff. Mercedes Moné would troll about creative control bars. And I remember when me and D'Angelo Steele last year, we went to the Square Circle Expo in Indianapolis. And we went to the panel with the Hurt Business, MVP, Shelton, and Bobby Lashley, Hurt Syndicate. And I remember my homie D'Angelo Steele, he wanted to ask a question, and they wound up letting another guy speak. They chose him to speak, and he was like, hey, could you talk about the creative control wrestlers have and stuff? I'm like, dude, why would you waste a question in that? And MVP said, man, look, y'all talk about this creative control online all the time. Why don't you just enjoy the wrestling? And I was clapping because I was like, yes, enjoy the wrestling. Like, you could ask this guy about his career, who he wants to face, the future, what's going on. No, let's talk about something I don't know about. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way, but it's just like, it's bad enough that a lot of wrestlers expose the locker room. And it's worse when these fans come in and talk about creative control and all of that stuff. And like, as soon as their favorite wrestler loses, it's creative control, And even if they like them, they're a VP, so still. So I do want to talk about that, especially when on the lines of AEW, right? Thekla, the current women's champion in AEW, she made some comments, a tweet or whatever, or comments, and I read it, and low-key, she won the title the same day, so congratulations. So, she said that she didn't want to go to WWE. She said when she saw AEW, she knew she wanted to go there because she didn't want to, she basically don't do good under authority, which is a bad thing to say, but anyway, don't do good under authority. She didn't want them to change stuff about it, didn't want them to give her a name, another name, and all of that stuff. So she said she used to tell her friends when she started wrestling that she would go to AEW. She wound up getting signed. Lo and behold, she got signed to AEW. Now, I'm not Thekla, I don't know her. A lot of wrestlers say they didn't want to go to AEW until they show up to WWE or something happens. It happens. Some wrestlers don't want to go to WWE. Kenny and the Bucks, they got contracts offered to them and stuff like that, and they've said no every time. They said they did not want to go, and they're doing whatever they want to do. And a lot of them have creative control with some of their matches and stuff, even into the fact that they was in charge of divisions. Kenny Omega at one point was in charge of the women's division, and he shouldn't have been. These guys as VPs and execs, I don't think they did a great job at all. And I think that it kind of backfired because they didn't really change. Try to do that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But still, I don't think that those guys show great ideas with creative and let alone creative control. I just think that a lot of people online, the independents, they knew who these guys were. They were the underdogs, and also they were fighting up, right? because some people despise WWE so much that they would have watched anything as long as it's anti-WWE. I looked at the product when it first started. I looked at stuff. I'm like, okay, well, this person doesn't do great promos. This match isn't great. They kicked out of Canadian Destroyer. They kicked out of Power. It's not something that I really like, the indie mindset. And honestly, I do think more the indie mindset is showing how it doesn't transition successfully in the mainstream for AEW, honestly. And I've said this multiple times. But still, going back into the creative control, I do think that, you know, what she is saying is true. That like Tony does like allow a lot of these people to have creative control on their characters. Not the matches. I don't think the matches, but creative control on the characters. And my question to y'all is, do they have a lot of success stories as wrestlers? As you know, because you know WWE, they're like, they tell you what to do, and you know sometimes you have input, sometimes you don't. But does AEW giving these people a chance to develop a character, does it really work? It hasn't really been successful. And I don't think it's been that successful. I think Toni Storm is like a great example of success with a character, right? I now think she overdoes certain things when she do, but that's what the fans like. I think the black and white, the AMC stuff, and the darling, the stuff like that, it works for her. It works for the company and stuff like that. That's a big chance to do something like that. And for it to pay off so well is good. Even leading to Tony with Blake Monroe, who was Mariah May and stuff like that. The story that they was doing and stuff like that, it was pretty dope. It led to great creativity with them. Now she's with she's the Love Bombs with Mina Shirakawa. I don't really care for I don't really care for it, but still, I think that she is a good example of what creative control could do. If I don't want to say that other people who do stuff, they don't put their all into it, but I do think that they need some direction. Tony is a great person. I hope that they are asking for direction. There's a lot of people like Chris Statlander, right? You know, she was an alien at one point from Andromeda Galaxy, and then she did the More Than a Woman thing, and I was like, okay, that's a little interesting. And then fast forward, she's the Cosmic Killer. What the heck does that even mean? What does the Cosmic Killer even mean? I don't understand it. And she had armbands that said Cosmic Killer. And I'm like, okay, all right. Monet, Mercedes Monet, you know, the belt collector, Monet 12 belts and Ultra Monet. Now, I didn't like the Ultra Monet name, but I did like what she was doing as far as with the belts. Problem is with that, when you start losing belts, by the time you lose the 12th belt, it's not as special as when you lost the first belt. And, you know, she's been, quote-unquote, crashing out and stuff like that. I'm sure she's losing the other belts that AEW is not really putting on record. They're not making a video about it, but it is what it is. You know, but still, it got people talking and stuff like that. And like I said, only some of it is 100% creative control. Some of these are guys, and they are, like, having ideas and stuff like that. I remember Jake Hager in the hat. Hey, it's my hat. And it's just like, hey, I guess. What I'm trying to say is, for the most part, is I don't think that a lot of the wrestlers there, if they have an opportunity to do creative control, and if they are actually doing it, they're not going nowhere with it. Like I said, Tony stands out like a sore thumb when it comes to character development and stuff like that. I think Athena has some good stuff with ROH, with the minions and stuff like that, but that's on ROH. It's not in AEW. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the kind of problem that I have. And even with the independent circuit, is that I've always felt like, okay, well, the problem is a lot of people, they do a first and last name gimmick, and then they don't have any kind of character. Now, and I talked to Arshawn. Shout out to Arshawn for Critical Drinking. Make sure you subscribe to him. You know, we spoke about Thekla. And, you know, we know that she's like a cyber spider or whatever like that. And, you know, he was like, you know, maybe she should like kind of play off on the webs and stuff like that for her character and, you know, and her outfit. And I'm like, you know, I do agree with that. I do think that she probably think that's a little corny, but I'm like, you calling yourself a spider for heaven's sake. You're calling yourself a spider, so I'm not saying you gotta walk around with extra arms and extra legs. I'm not sitting here saying that you gotta swing on a web into the crowd or the ring. That actually be kind of cool, but I'm not saying that. But still, if you have so much of creative control, okay, cool, you do thing, okay, all right, cool, because you know spiders are agile and stuff like that. You know, I know a wrestler that's in the independent, Blair Onyx, shout out to her. She does the same thing with the spider and stuff like that. So I feel like Blair does a better job because of the presentation, the extended fingers and the outfits and the spider. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying she got to be her or be like her or be more like her, but give in more to the character than anything. Even Jacob Fatu bringing up a WWE reference, the Samoan werewolf. Sometimes he has a mask, sometimes he has it on his shirt or whatever like that, but we kind of understand what it means, and I do think that that's how they're trying to translate it. Like, you don't have to look like a wolf or whatever like that, but we know that werewolves are supernatural beings, very agile, very fast and stuff like that. With Thekla being a spider, just doing a back bend, it gotta be a little bit more than that. Change the spear too. I'm sick of spears. Please stop. Everybody stop spearing. We don't need to spear no more. That's enough spears in the wrestling company. But still, some people I think do great, and I do think that some people, they get diluted. I think Ricky Starks, now with Ricky Saints, was killing it in AEW, but I felt like they definitely put a ceiling on that young man. And he spoke about like them even like speaking about like his personal life and doing stuff outside of wrestling and going to other events and people getting mad. The situation with him and Adam Copeland, where he actually got Adam Copeland on the microphone. I don't know why y'all thought that Edge was great on the microphone, because that just showed me and showed that just showed me and y'all what I've been saying. That really set me over the edge of my seat. That really made Adam Copeland upset. But still, the creative control of his character. Sure, people are going to say he looks like The Rock. People are going to say he looks like this and that. But honestly, he was his own self, and it actually worked. You get what I'm saying? I can't sit here and say like a lot of wrestlers with this creative control is very successful. MJF, he stuck out before at the beginning of AEW and stuff like that. But to be honest, like what he does now is just the same stick. And it's not technically his fault. It's just that AEW should have capitalized more on it. Okay, cool. He's a 2-time champion and all of this stuff. And then the situation with Brody King and all of that, I guess, I do think they could have capitalized on it. The top guys, even Swerve, what he does as not only a wrestler but also a rapper and an entrepreneur, I think he does an exceptional job as far as being creative and stuff like that. We've had a lot of rappers that are wrestlers and wrestlers that are rappers and stuff like that. We think about the R-Troops and Road Dogg try to rap with his little braids and stuff like that. We have stuff like that, and sometimes it becomes a little bit too stereotypical, but with Swerve it is not. The man has his own shoe line, he has his own clothes, he has his own music and stuff like that. He comes out, and then even like his entrances as the Predator, Green Lantern, Static, Killmonger, like a lot of dope things have come from the creativity of Swerve Strickland, and I think that's pretty dope. I think he's also one of the ones you put up there with like Toni Storm. I think Toni Storm is a little bit higher, obviously, because of the creativity and also the ingenuity of giving what she does. She plays into that character even when she's not even wrestling. Swerve does the same thing, but Toni just has more of an animated character. But I do think that Swerve does a great job with it, the song, and with Prince Nana throwing a coffee cup and all of that stuff. It's not hunky-dory or nothing like that. It's like he's a serious wrestler, he's a serious main eventer, and it definitely works. But when we talk about that stuff, sometimes that stuff doesn't work. Adam Page, Hangman Adam Page, okay, he's a cowboy, but it's just like, okay, outside of the music and boots, all right, cool. And I'm not sitting here saying he gotta ride a horse. I'm not saying that he got to ride a horse, but cowboy stuff. We've seen a lot of cowboys before and stuff like that, and it's like he alright. Like I'm not trying to bash him. He's alright as a cowboy. He alright. You know what I'm saying? He's alright. That's it. Like he's alright. And this is coming from somebody who is a superhero, dresses as one, to save professional wrestling, and like that is my motive. That is what I am doing. I'm saving professional wrestling, so people know, even when I'm dressing up in my gear, with my cape, with my certain things, the situations, the stuff that I sell, the merch, that you're here for a show. I'm here to save something. And I'm not saying that Adam Page has to come out with a cowboy hat and stuff like that, but still, just because you say it, you gotta be it. You gotta somewhat live it, or you gotta allude that you live it. You may not live it for sure, like I'm saying, like, you know what I'm saying when I say that? So like I said, creative control is definitely something that a lot of people shouldn't have. We can even talk about the Death Riders, and we know that Jon Moxley has a lot of pull, and he's trying to elevate his friends, Marina, and a lot of people say she's improved. But you got Wheeler, you got Claudio, you got Pac, Gabe King, you got all of these guys, and it was just like the story of the Death Riders helped nobody. It helped nobody. Taking the belt off of Bryan Danielson, who just beat Swerve, and then Bryan Danielson basically retired, and then putting the belt in a bag and suffocating people and trying to drown people and setting people on fire and telling people, oh, this is our company and all of that stuff, and then wound up working with the two people who helped create the company, the Bucks. It made no sense, and it was just like Moxley is the heart and soul of AEW, was going under some cardiac arrest with that story. You're the champion. We don't see the belt. Y'all just jumping people just for the sake of jumping. And then y'all didn't even jump the people that would have made it interesting. Like if y'all would have tried to do something with the Hurt Syndicate. Y'all didn't do none of that. Y'all just beating up people and stuff. And then the matches wasn't that good. Moxley bleeding. There's people coming out, stabbing people, trying to do all of this stuff and all of that stuff. So like I said, like this is the dude that's like a key figure in AEW and just creatively bankrupt. Jericho was too, man. Oh my gosh, the Ocho, a little bit of the bubbly. Like some stuff was trending and was interesting and stuff, but then some of the stuff was just great. Hi guys, the Vortex. Like Muggs was calling it the Vortex before Jericho was calling it the Vortex, because people was like, dang, as soon as they face Jericho, they're gonna be wrestling him for months and wrestling his cronies for months, and it's not gonna go anywhere. Like this is stuff that people was saying. Like Jericho stuff hasn't been that interesting in the last few years. I think one of the last things I was really interested in that involved Jericho was when he was going against Eddie Kingston. And Eddie Kingston said, if I win, you got to shake my hand. And Jericho tapped, and he didn't shake his hand. And then they wound up doing a few more rematches and multi-man matches, and Jericho wound up winning the whole thing. So it's just like, that these guys have a form of creative control, but they don't know how to control creatively. They don't know how to control creatively. And it's just like, what in the world is going on? This is why other companies do try to direct and try to guide people to doing certain things. Why don't you try this and why don't you try that? Some people get mad at WWE for renaming people and giving them new characters, but it worked. You look at The Shield, you look at Seth Rollins, Roman, you look at these wrestlers and stuff, LA Knight, you look at this stuff, and these wrestlers are giving 100% and what they're doing, and it works. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. We can talk about Emma being Emmalina, and it didn't work. We can talk about Keith Lee, became Bearcat Keith Lee. I can't believe they did that to that man. Can't believe they did that to that man. Karrion Kross, the first time he was undefeated in NXT, he showed up with gladiator outfit and lost to Jeff Hardy. Like, creative stuff can be creative, but then sometimes it can be a dud. And sometimes you can like check stuff out, and you could be like, okay, well, this is interesting. We can do this. Tony is giving them that kind of grace to actually like give them to do that. They're going to get paid regardless. But some companies, they're not going to do that because you're on their dime. You're on their television time that they rented out to the broadcasting company. You're on their time. So they don't have time to try to tell you, hey, you should try to work on this or work on this character and stuff like that. And like I said, some people do need help. I mean, Mercedes Moné is a CEO. I'm not mad at that. And I think she does a great job for the most part outside them wigs. Them wigs be wigging. And honestly, her gear ain't been that good. But still, shout out to Mercedes Moné. You can tell that she is the boss of something, how she runs something and all of that. And I know a lot of people got mad at her talking about creative control, but be mad at the company for allowing creative control. Something to think about. But I just want to speak about that for a little bit. Like I said, Tony, Swerve, a few people stick out as far as controlling their character. Not the matches. I want to reiterate their character. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Chris Classic. Let's take it home.